Good morning, folks, and we are live. Glad to be here with you. This is going to be a good show. You're going to like this. We're going to find out today why the United States Marines are called devil dogs. We're going to learn that today. Grab your coffee, fill your cup. If you already know, I know you guys, I know you folks in this community are informed, super intelligent people. If you know the answer to why the United States Marines are called devil dogs, don't spoil it. Don't put it in chat. I got a whole thing for it. Let's do this. Hey, folks. It's a good day. Look, we're going to talk about Trump's been re-indicted. We're going to talk about that, what the differences are and what's going on with that. We're going to talk about Trump has spit in the face of veterans again. This happened. Yep. Trump campaign staff has altercation with official at Arlington Cemetery. There's more to that. I like to discuss things. I like to have background so that you can really understand just how important, how impactful something is. So we're going to jump on the Wayback Machine. We're not going to go straight to that. We're going to talk about a couple other subjects that are happening. I want you to really have this framed in your mind as to what we're looking at. And before we get to that, let's talk about this. This is the kind of thing that the Republicans are talking about right now. They're flailing. The Trump campaign is sinking faster than a bowling ball in the Atlantic Ocean. I mean, it's just really just straight down. And they don't know what to do. Even their grifters online, their so-called influencers have no clue what to do in this situation. They're just flailing and lost, and they're doing stupid crap like this. This attack just had on Tim Walz went viral all over the right wing. I told you they're going to come and say and do stupid crap. This is the kind of stuff we're talking about. This guy is being, like I said, this went viral. People all over the right wing just latched onto this. They're saying that Tim Walz is somehow lying or something like that, because here he is with a picture of Scout, his dog, and then here's a picture of him with another dog that they're saying is also Scout. And they're saying, well, he's a liar or weird or something like that because he's pictured with another dog here. The problem is that second picture doesn't really exist. That's a still shot taken out of a video with that heading. If you look at the community note, it says the dog is in the second photo is one Tim Walz met while taking Scout from the first photo to the dog park. Fuller video of the moment is available on Tim Walz's Instagram. And yeah, we've got that video for you. Oh my God, Tim Walz goes to the dog park and he's nice to other dogs. So yeah, that's what they got. They took a still of a video that's obviously what it is, a guy being nice to animals. And they tried to create this fiction that somehow Tim Walz had said that, and that Tim Walz was just claiming another dog or something. I don't know, some weird shit like that. I mean, it's just crazy, but it went viral. Yeah, he's lying about his dogs, 34 convictions. Dope. Yeah, exactly, Bob. Exactly. It's crazy. This is, when I say they're flailing, this is what I mean. Literally easily provable stuff. The video was literally on Tim Wall's Instagram. I mean, it's just, this is what they got. This is what they're going to do. I mean, they're just insane. And then you've got Fox News, which has been doing something really disgusting. We talked about this a couple shows back, where I said, look, they're going to go after Kamala Harris's greatest strengths. And one of her greatest strengths is her resume, and that she's a leader, that she's been an attorney general, that she's been a senator. She is uber qualified for the job. Well, what does Fox News do? Well, this is Jesse Waters talking about Kamala Harris, disrespecting Kamala Harris. And you'll understand the psychology behind it here in just a second when you see it.
This is where the president has his most impact. You have a lot of room to maneuver there as commander-in-chief. We don't know who she is. We don't know what she believes. She's going to get paralyzed in the Situation Room while the generals have their way with her. Right now,
Jesse,
Jesse, I don't like that.
Figuratively,
Take
again,
it back.
have their way with
His
her.
own
Control
co-hosts
her.
were like, whoa, that's a
sexual
bridge
way.
too far.
You now, this is where the president.
Were y'all
has
able to
his
hear that?
impact.
Okay, I know the audio is not that loud. I can't control their audio. I just can't. That's what we've got. Were y'all able to hear what he said? That Kamala Harris is going to become paralyzed in the Situation Room, and that generals were just going to have their way with her. Yeah, that terminology wasn't an accident. That's just gross, man. And it has no basis in reality of who the hell Kamala Harris is or who our professional generals are. It's just disgusting. But they're trying to diminish her. They're trying to make her look weak. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to disrespect her to make it okay for their voters to disrespect her. And it's gross. It's gross. And I wanted you to have that taste in your mouth as we get into this whole cemetery thing. This is who they are. This is who their networks are. And yes, this just happened. Trump campaign staff had altercation with official at Arlington National Cemetery. Yeah. Remember I told you that they just rehired this jerk off right here. So here's the story. They're at Arlington National Cemetery, and why they're at Arlington is important. This was the event that was going on. They thought it would be important for President Trump to lay a wreath in honor of the people, the soldiers that were killed during the withdrawal from Afghanistan. You remember the suicide bombing that happened at the airport. They want to make as huge a deal about that as possible. This wasn't like a holiday event or something like that. And there's no reason for Donald Trump, private citizen, to be doing this. This was all a campaign stunt. It's not really to honor veterans. It's not. And I'm going to explain why here in just a minute. And veterans groups are pissed off about this because let me tell you something. 2,500 Americans died in Afghanistan. Over 20,000 were wounded. Yeah, these 13 weren't it. Yes, it was a tragedy, but it was a tragedy that Donald Trump created. And before we get into all of that, I just want you to understand who Donald Trump is. Let's jump in the Wayback Machine. and let's understand who Donald Trump is. This is Sergeant Dan Daly. He served in the United States Marine, Master Sergeant Dan Daly. And no, your eyes aren't blurry. Those are 2 medals of honor he's wearing around his neck. He was put up for a 3rd, but he resisted because he didn't really think that any one person should have 3 medals of honor. So he was given, this is a Navy Cross down here. This is a Distinguished Service Cross. And he earned those 2 at a battle called Bellwood. And we're going to have a little history here. I want you to stick with me. This is important to the story and to understand. Dan Daly is accredited with the quote during the Battle of Bellwood, where he was 44 at the time. He was 44 years old during the Battle of Bellwood during World War I. He was leading his men, and they were pinned down in a bad situation. I'll get to more to that in a minute. But the quote he is attributed with is, "Come on, you sons of bitches, you want to live forever?" In rallying his men. In hindsight, after the fact, he said he wasn't quite that salty. He said, "Jesus Christ, you guys want to live forever." But his men swear he said the original quote. So yeah, he was one of the bravest soldiers our country has ever had. And he is sacrosanct to United States Marine. This is Captain Lloyd Williams. Captain Lloyd Williams, unlike Dan Daly, who survived, did not. He died at Bellwood. He is attributed with the quote, "Retreat, hell, we just got here." That famous quote was from Captain Lloyd Williams. Captain Lloyd Williams' last order that he gave was to order his corpsmen to not treat him, but to treat his men. And he did not survive. He didn't survive being evacuated out. But he did, that was his last order, was to order his corpsmen to treat his men and not him. An incredibly brave individual. So what's Bellwood? Most people don't even know what it is, to be honest with you. If you're not a United States Marine or you're not a history nut like me, you probably don't even know what Bellwood is. You may have heard the name before. Well, when the United States entered World War I, we were kind of late. It had been going on for about 4 years. And in 1918, when we showed up, this was the situation on the ground. The Russians had just sued for peace and signed a peace treaty with the Kaiser. They had just had their communist revolution and they were done. Look, the Kaiser's forces they were the best army on earth at the time. They really were. They were professional soldiers. They were good. They were good. I mean, really freaking good. Their commander was Hindenburg. Was their commander. And Hindenburg's greatest talent was understanding the talents he didn't have and surrounding himself with people that did have talents. The commander he put in charge was a guy by the name of Ludendorff. And Ludendorff's superpower was logistics. He understood warfare. He understood modern warfare. And Ludendorff was good. He really was good. And the British at the time, they were led by a guy by the name of Field Marshal Douglas Haig. And Haig had fallen out of favor. And if you ever want to learn history, just fall in love with history, just start learning about World War I. It's really, really incredible. It is. Haig had fallen out of favor because of battles like Passchendaele and the Somme and Verdun. World War I saw very old generals meeting very new warfare, and it was horrific. It was horrific. And by new warfare, what I mean is the new weapons that were on the field, machine guns. You're talking about generals that had basically fought in wars where they just marched men in waves across battlefields. Well, now those men were facing machine guns, and I mean good machine guns. I mean good machine guns. A lot of the machine guns that came out of World War I actually went all the way through World War II. These were, good rates of fire. Some of them had water-cooled barrels. They were good. They were good. Literally stood the test of time. Gas, poison gas. There were no accords banning the use of poison gas. Modern artillery came into fruition during World War I. And Ludendorff really understood how to maximize this. Yes, mustard gas is exactly. Mustard gas and chlorine gas were both used. They learned how to stick them in artillery shells. They had basically the beginnings of modern artillery. It wasn't the old cannons that you saw, with wooden wheels and what. No, this was modern artillery. And like I said, the Russians had bowed out, and the British were not supporting Field Marshal Haig anymore. He'd fallen out of favor. They figured that exactly, Kellen. Tanks were starting to enter the battlefield. Basically, the opinion of Haig was that he didn't give a crap about his men, and he was just using them as cannon fodder. So they weren't sending him reinforcements. He was down by most accounts by 600,000 men necessary to continue the fight. The French, seeing the Russians pull out, they had been going through this horrific trench warfare for 4 years, and they had had enough. They were facing mutinies within their own military, rebellions within their own military. They had just gotten a new commander, and he was able to pull his troops together. But that was the situation on the ground when we showed up. And here we are. We show up on the battlefield, and we have no experience in this new type of warfare. And our commander was Blackjack Persing. This was the commander of U.S. troops in World War I, General John Blackjack Persing. One of the first decisions Pershing made was to say, okay, look, we're not going to let the French and the British conscript our forces. We're just not. And I know this is history. Everybody hates history class. Stick with me. I'm going somewhere with this. We're almost done. General Pershing said, look, we're not. Douglas Haig is a jackass. He doesn't care about his own men. Imagine how he's going to treat our men. We're not going to do that. The French are a mess right now. No, we're going to lead our own men. And the French and the British basically said, well, you get what you get and you don't pitch a fit. And they said, okay, but you're facing a new kind of warfare you've never seen before. And they set up basically a secondary training for our troops when we got to Europe behind the lines. And they tried to bring us up to speed with what trench warfare was, the new modern warfare was. That's impossible, folks. That's impossible. Until you actually see images and pictures and read the accounts of what was going on, flamethrowers inside trenches, things like that. One thing after another. It was horrific. The gas masks we showed up with were crap. They were really terrible. That was one of the first things the French and the British told us was, you're going to need better gas masks. You are. And that was one of the things that we fixed. It was ugly. I'm trying to stress that to you. When we got there, the French and the British were very They were on the edge. Ludendorff knew this. So he started what they called Kaiserschlacht. He was going for the throat. He was going for the throat. He knew that if he could draw French support away from the British were like the Russians. They were done. The British people were starving. They were starving while this was going on. Thanks for the support. I really appreciate you, Susan. I do. You allow me to do this full time, and I love doing this. The British people were starving. The French at least had food. If they could draw the support of the French away, which the Kaiser's forces considered the French to be the greater threat, they knew they could knock the British out and just deal with the French one-on-one. That was the plan. That was the beginning of Kaiserschlacht. And let me tell you, Kaiserschlacht was literally the closest thing to hell on earth that has ever existed. It opened up with an artillery barrage in which the Germans fired 1.2 million artillery shells. I can't even wrap my head around that. I don't understand what that must have been like. But folks, it was so bad. Tens of thousands of soldiers on both sides simply ceased to exist, vanished from the face of the earth. It was insane, just insane. Really, if you want to fall in love with history, learn about World War I. So we show up, the doughboys and the Marines, and we were exactly what the French and the British needed. We were. The morale was boosted. And when they saw the Battle of Bellwood, which militarily was insignificant, Bellwood was not a militarily critical battle, but it changed both Europe and America forever. It did. It allowed the French to know, because the Battle of Bellwood was in central, just north of the Champagne region in France. It allowed both the French and the British to see that we were real. We were there. And we were good. The French and the British were correct. We didn't know what the hell we were getting into. Bellwood was exactly that. It was a wood. It was, think about a forest, surrounded by farmland. It was slightly elevated. We didn't have reconnaissance at the time, real reconnaissance at the time. And because the Germans were dug into a wood, a forest, our artillery was close to useless. The shells would hit the tops of the trees, which actually served to hinder us because they would knock the trees down and made it even harder for us to progress into this region. The Kaiser's troops, like I said, were, after 4 years of this, had this down to a science. They were dug in. Even the shells that got through did no serious damage. What surrounded Bellwood was farmland. So I want you to imagine our Marines have to assault a forest that's elevated with dug in, experienced troops. And they have to do it by crossing fields of wheat, open fields of wheat for over 500 yards in most cases. Allison, Texas Paul, I love your podcast. I'm a retired educator of 25 years, 8 months. I love history. It's time to be a student. Yeah, I love it too. I really do. I love history. So I want you to imagine, you're talking about mustard gas, you're talking about chlorine gas, you're talking about machine guns and exceptional German troops. And we had to march right into it, right into the teeth. Bellwood, while not militarily significant, really did establish the United States military doctrine that we still adhere to today, that sense of bravery. The Marines at Bellwood lost half of their forces. Half. They were successful. They were victorious. But the bravery was legendary. It is considered hallowed ground to the United States Marine Corps. It's where they get their moniker from, the Devil Dogs. Thank you for the support, Beverly. Ludendorff really dismissed us when we got there. Yes, exactly, Terry Foster. It was Pickett's charge all over again. It was when we first got there. But the Marines did in a week what it took the French and the British 4 years to do. They adapted in 1 week. They went from marching in waves across these open fields. You're talking about non-commissioned officers that said no, no. And this leads to the culture today of non-commissioned officers having authority in the heat of battle to make decisions. They moved in small groups with the larger forces staying behind to provide suppressing fire. That group would advance, establish a position in artillery, divots and whatnot, get to a safe position. They would provide covering fire for another small group that would advance, and they would just leapfrog across this field. It's how they were able to successfully take Bellwood. And the actions that day, the men that day, this is literally hallowed ground to the United States Marine Corps and the United States military. Because had we not performed the way we did, really, folks, the Kaiser was going to win. You wonder why Hitler, everybody's like, oh, that idiot fought a front on 2 wars. This, that, and the reason he believed he could do that was the Kaiser did in World War I. They were successful. They were really, I cannot stress this enough. The Germans in World War I were really freaking good. They had just introduced the stormtroopers, which is the predecessor to what would eventually become the Blitzkrieg. I mean, it was just an amazing history. And I have to tell you, I cannot stress enough. Do we have any Marines in the audience that will tell you the significance of Bellwood, guys like Dan Daly? This is literally hallowed ground. And the reason I'm going on and on and on about this, there's a reason. We're getting there. We're going to tie it all back together to what we were talking about earlier. This is where the Marines picked up the moniker Devil Dogs, and they didn't give it to themselves. See, Ludendorff, like I said, had discounted us. We were going to be fresh faces, sure. We were going to be supplied, sure. We were going to be have young, fresh troops that weren't ground down. Yeah, all of that. But he knew we were inexperienced, and he knew how good his forces were. And he said, you know what? We got this. We've got this. So they started Kaiserschlacht, which was, again, to draw the French away. They did this feigning movement down in the south to attack the French, to make the French that is where the main attack was going to happen, when really what they wanted to do was draw support away and march through Flanders. Got it? That was the plan. The reports that the German commanders were sending back about our Marines, they referred to them as Teufelhunden. Teufelhunden literally translates to devil dogs. Devil dogs were kind of like a boogeyman in German culture. They the mountain dogs that take children and people. They were literally referring to the United States Marines as boogeymen because they'd never seen such bravery. They knew we were the real deal. And all of their action reports from the Germans referred to over and over again referred to the United States Marines as Teufelhunde. And the Marines absolutely adopted that, and we're very proud of it and use it to this day. And that is why a United States Marine is known as a devil dog. Am I getting across that this is central to the culture of the United States Marines? Well, the dead were buried. We didn't ship the dead back to the United States like we do now. We didn't have the ability to globetrot the fallen back home. They were buried where they fell, literally right next to it. There are two canals, the Ain and the Marne, that converge right by Bellow, France, and they established a U.S. cemetery there called the Ain Marne Cemetery. They renamed it. The French were so impressed with the way the Marines had fought, they actually renamed Bellwood the Marine Regiment Wood. And we established the Ain Marne Cemetery. Again, hallowed ground. And president after president after president goes and pays their respects at the Ain Marne Cemetery. This is Nixon. I won't do each and every president, but you get the idea. That's Nixon. This is Joe Biden laying a wreath at the Ain Marne Cemetery. One president didn't. Donald Trump. It was raining. He didn't want to go. He doesn't understand. He doesn't understand things like this. He doesn't understand things like we discuss. And that's when this happened. He pushed back against the staff. He said he didn't want to go. They tried to explain to him why it was important. And he said that they were losers. There were a bunch of losers at Bellwood. In another conversation later on, when they were urging him to go, he said, "Oh no, I don't get it. I don't know. Why do we have to honor these people? They're suckers. I mean, what did they get out of it?" And yes, John Kelly did confirm this, and members of Trump's staff confirmed this. He did say that about the veterans buried at the Ain Marne Cemetery. That's who he is. That is who he is. Well, that brings us to yesterday. Trump doesn't give a shit about veterans. He has no respect. He didn't go to the Ain Marne Cemetery because it was raining. He didn't want his precious hair to get wet. Made up a lie, said helicopters couldn't fly in the rain, which anybody that's actually served in the military, yeah, helicopters fly in the rain. He said the Secret Service wouldn't drive him there. No, that's not true either. Those were both proven to be lies. And staff members that no longer support Donald Trump have confirmed he didn't want to go because of his hair. He didn't give a shit about veterans. So what's the deal with the wreath laying? Well, that's more crap, more disrespect out of Donald Trump. They were at Arlington Cemetery to use it as a prop. And it started out with something that the cemetery said, okay, you can do this. They were laying a wreath for the 13 victims that died in the bombing as we left Afghanistan. airport bombing when we left Afghanistan. They try to use those deaths as a prop. It was one of Trump's greatest failures. He had a lot of failures. We saw how he handled COVID. Do you think he handled the withdrawal of Afghanistan any more deftly? No, he didn't. He didn't. He disregarded the Afghan government, and he made a deal with the Taliban. He surrendered and just started drawing down our troops. And the Afghans started taking territory. And that's before he left office. That's before he left office. And don't take my word for it. That's what our generals say. Said it was a disaster. He betrayed our Afghan allies, didn't include them in the talks, cut a deal with the Taliban, cut 5,000 of their fighters loose. Hardened terrorists, just cut them loose, put them back on the field. Because they had no clue what they were doing. They were no more adept at something like this than they were in handling COVID. They're just incompetent. Yeah. All over, they were ham-handed and stupid. And they've been trying to run away from this from the moment they did it, because everybody that knew anything lost their frickin' minds at the way Trump did this. They cut a deal in Doha in February of 2020. This is Mike Pompeo with the Taliban. They made a deal. They cut the Afghan government out. And then they radically drew down our troops to where we militarily could no longer respond if we wanted to. And the Taliban just rolled across Afghanistan. And Donald Trump lost. They really thought that this deal was going to hand them re-election. They thought, okay, the people want out of Afghanistan, and we did. We did. Everybody was glad we got. I don't know anybody that's not glad that we're not still in Afghanistan. That's not happy that we left Afghanistan. But the way they did it was so horrific, it immediately blew up in their faces. So what did they do? They created this counter-narrative. It's all Joe Biden's fault. Well, folks, Joe Biden got into office. The first thing he did was renegotiate that deal to buy us more time to get our troops up, because it was insane. We were literally leaving in chaos. And we were supposed to be out, in the first quarter of 2021. He bought us all the way to September to get as many people out as possible. And what do the Republicans say? They blame it all. They blame it all on Joe Biden. Oh, Joe Biden did this. And they get their corporate press shills to write articles and say, well, Joe Biden, he didn't have to, agree. He could have changed the deal if he wanted to. No, that was the shit burger that Donald Trump left on his plate. Because the choices were, do the best you can at getting our forces out in the ridiculously chaotic mess that you created. You handed Afghanistan back to the Taliban. They now control almost everything outside Kabul. Our choices are to continue to leave or refight the Afghanistan war. That was our choices. It would have taken at least 100,000 troops. And a recommitment of our air power, a recommitment of everything. We would have had to do Afghanistan 2.0 and start from scratch. So instead of course, taking responsibility for the disaster they created, they blame a Democrat. When they wreck the economy, they blame a Democrat. They screwed up Afghanistan and the withdrawal from Afghanistan and created a chaotic, disgusting mess. What did they do? Republicans just showed pictures of equipment that we demilitarized and lied about that. They literally would take equipment and say, okay, we don't have time to ship it back. It'll cost too much to ship it back. They would take a blowtorch and they would literally cut the engine blocks. They would literally cut the turbine engines with torches in helicopters and just leave them. They were trash at that point. The Taliban couldn't afford to repair them. They didn't have engines to repair them. They were demilitarized, but the Republicans would lie. Yes, or use thermite, exactly. They would literally burn them to the ground. The Republicans would lie and just say, oh, we left all this equipment. No, we didn't. We destroyed it all. And then they blame Joe Biden for the chaos. So when I say Donald Trump doesn't give a shit about our veterans, I mean, he doesn't give a shit about our veterans. That whole wreath laying thing was a campaign stunt because they're flailing. The only thing that the righties have is this bullshit lie about Afghanistan. They'll eat them lies up, man. And I've got to tell you, I will never piss on the family of a fallen soldier. I will not. But I will tell you, I don't understand this. The altercation happened at Arlington because there are rules at Arlington. You don't use Arlington as a campaign prop. You want to lay a wreath to honor some soldiers, fine, we'll let you do that. But you don't get to walk around in the graves and shoot campaign commercials and crap like that. That is against the rules. And the Arlington staff told them, hey, you can't do this. They cussed them out and literally pushed them out of the way. And then they released this statement. Remember I told you about Stephen Chung, the campaign spokesman for the Trump campaign, that disgusting freak panda? Yeah, he put this statement out. He says, in a statement to NPR, Stephen Chung, the Trump campaign spokesman, strongly rejected the notion of a physical altercation, adding, we are prepared to release footage and if such defamatory claims are made. NPR called their bluff, said, give us the footage. We'll air it. We're a network. We'll air it. We'll say we were wrong. Guess what? No footage. They're full of crap. But they went farther. They said, and NPR quoted them here. I love that. The fact that the private photographer was permitted on the premises, he's talking about the family. There was no professional photographer that was allowed. That's against the rules. On the premises, and for whatever reason, an unnamed individual clearly suffering from a mental health episode decided to physically block members of President Trump's team during a very solemn ceremony, Chung said in a statement. They're calling him crazy for enforcing the rules. They're doubling down. They spit in the face of veterans. They treat this hallowed ground, like crap so that Trump can go do this. This is what they were there to do. And again, please someone help me understand this. This is the family of Nicole Leanne. Thumbs up, standing over her grave. Ooh, I don't understand that. I mean, I understand that they're Trump supporters. I understand they've worked with his campaign. I understand that they pushed this bogus narrative that this was somehow Joe Biden's fault. when Trump was the one that released the terrorists. Trump was the one that created this chaos. Trump was the one that made the deal with the Taliban. Trump was the one that betrayed the Afghan government, which caused the Afghan government to say, hey, you're going to do this without us. We're not going to die for this. And they just said to the Taliban, go on through. We're not going to fight you. We've been betrayed. And yes, this family is working with the Trump campaign. Jeremy Breeden says, this former Army infantryman with 2 years of combat in Iraq has more respect for a slug than Captain Bonespurs. Thank you, Jeremy. I appreciate you, man. And I hope you can explain this to me because, I've made this point before. I'm a civilian. I've never served. I never have. I don't understand this. This is the other family. This is what they were there for. Look at this. Thumbs up. This was not about honoring veterans. Look at the mom and the dad. I don't get it. Can someone please explain it to me? And this is why Vote Vets and other veterans groups are really pissed off about this. You do not disrespect Arlington. You don't. I mean, he already disrespected Ayn Marin. He doesn't understand what hallowed ground means. Everybody is just a prop for his own selfishness. Man, I hope your coffee is as good as mine. I got a hot cup here. I don't get it. I don't get it. I really don't understand. How can this family support Trump? And I am not going to disparage them. I'm not. I'm sorry. If you have a family member that serves and dies for our country, I think you deserve a bit of grace that even if I disagree with you, I have to respect you. I do. So all I will say is I don't understand. I just don't understand. I mean, this guy, this is your guy.
Is your favorite president, Donald J. Trump, with some very exciting news. By popular demand, I'm doing a new series of Trump digital trading cards. You all know what they are. We've had a lot of fun with them. It's called the America First Collection. 50 all new stunning digital trading cards. It's really something. These cards show me dancing and even me holding some Bitcoins. Here's the best part. I'm doing great things for my Trump digital card collectors. First, there's the real physical Trump cards. Purchase 15 or more of my Trump digital trading cards and we'll mail you a beautiful physical trading card. It's really, I think, quite something.
Wait for it.
Each physical trading card has an authentic piece of my suit that I wore for the presidential debate, and people are calling it the knockout suit. I don't know about that.
So yeah, your card's going to stink. God. I mean, wow. I can't understand MAGA. I don't get them. I just don't get them. It's no, that's not Saturday Night Live. That's not a skit or a bit. I mean, that's really a guy that wants to be president of the United States again. He acted this way last time he was president. Yeah, NFTs, Doug. People pay a considerable amount of money to have someone send them a digital picture of a card. And they trade these as though they're financial instruments. I think it's a grift. I do. I think it's money laundering, to be quite honest with you. I think it's a way to have untracked donations. But yeah, I mean, it's just wow. But we've got some more news on the Trump front. Remember when Jack Smith asked for more time? And people were really upset. They're like, "Oh man, that means we're definitely not going to get a trial in the DC case before the election." And I assured people, look, we weren't going to get a trial before the election on the DC case anyways. The timing just wasn't there. And hang in there, because there's a reason he's asking for more time. Jack Smith is a serious individual. He is not a joke. This isn't a game. If he's asking for more time, he needs more time to work. And that's exactly what Jack Smith did, as he went to work. And he took the new Supreme Court decision, and he got together with the best minds at the Department of Justice, and they took a look at these crimes, and they said, okay, how can we charge them? We know these crimes happened. We know who committed them. We have proof. We have evidence. We're prepared to lay our case out. How can we present this case under the new framework that the Republican-dominated Supreme Court has laid before us? Yeah. There you go. There you go. By the way, there's only one E in Schroeder. I know some people spell it that way, but there's only one E in Schroeder. Yes, I have hair. Thank you. That's very kind of you. And I appreciate the support, kid. I really do. Thank you. You let me do this full time, and I can't tell you how grateful I am. I get to talk about history. I get to talk about, and we make a difference. We make a difference. We really do make a difference. You folks, this community makes a difference. You do. So yeah, let's get back to talking about Jack Smith and what's going on there. What's the difference? Because they're charging the same crimes. We've got a superseding indictment just filed yesterday by Jack Smith for the same 4 crimes. Conspiracy to defraud the United States. That's talking about the whole false electors scheme. Conspiracy to obstruct an official proceeding, talking about January 6th, urging the crowd to disrupt the certification of results. You've got obstruction of an attempt to obstruct and an attempt to obstruct an official proceeding. Again, talking about the conspiracy itself and attempting to stop the certification of the votes, talking about the false electors, and conspiracy against rights, which is basically you have disregarded all 81 million people that voted for Joe Biden and were victorious. You are taking their right to vote away by engaging in a coup. All 4 of those counts have just been recharged. They just took them back to the jury, and the jury said, yes, absolutely. All 4 of these charges still stand in the new format in which you are presenting this evidence. So yeah, he has been re-indicted. What's the difference? What is the difference? If they're charging the same crowd, what's different? The difference is they have yanked the teeth out of the Supreme Court. And a perfect example is this guy right here, Jeffrey Clark. They took him to a new grand jury. You remember Jeffrey Clark here, the guy that answers his door in his underwear, weirdo guy? Jeffrey Clark's no longer in the indictment. This is the kind of thing that they did. Just give you an example so you can wrap your head around this and understand what they did. This is the kind of thing they did. It's not the only one, but this is a perfect example. And yeah, exactly. Popak over at Midas Touch and Karen Magnifico will get into each of the different things. They'll go into this new in detail, all of it. This is just, I think once you understand this, you understand it all. Jeffrey Clark here was never part. Thank you, Viola. I really appreciate you. Thank you for the support. Jeffrey Clark was never part of the campaign. Jeffrey Clark worked for the Department of Justice. His portion of this conspiracy, which again, Donald Trump was attempting to put him in charge of the DOJ and utilize the DOJ to legitimize their fake electors scheme. All of that's been taken away because, again, Jeffrey Clark, while he was part of the conspiracy, never worked for the Trump campaign. They took to the grand jury proof of all of these crimes, utilizing only people that were part of the Trump campaign. And why is that significant? Because, yeah, this isn't an official act. He wasn't acting as president. He was acting as a candidate. And the U.S. Supreme Court can't do dick about it. So, yeah, when I tell you that Jack Smith, don't stress about Eileen Cannon down in Florida in the documents case. Jack Smith has got this. He's got this. He's got this. The Department of Justice isn't going to let this go. And when Donald Trump loses this next election, he's going to prison. He is going to prison. Period. That's the end of it. So, yeah. We could go into details about each of the different things, but it's not important. You get it, right? I mean, you understand. They took everything that could be considered an official act out of the indictments. They neutered the Supreme Court, and they're ridiculous. We now have a king ruling because he was acting as private citizen Donald Trump running for re-election. Amen, Jack Smith. Way to go. Good job. This is kind of interesting because I have long said I think he's going to run. And I don't mean run for re-election. I mean he's going to run away. I think he's going to end up in some place like Venezuela. I think Trump is going to go someplace that doesn't. Yeah, I think Venezuela too. We don't have Russia has massive influence, and we don't have an extradition treaty. I think Donald Trump runs away. There's a new theory about this that's coming around. That Trump has way too much information, and he's way too dangerous. If they're able to actually prevent him from running, when he loses this next election, there really will be no reason, because right now the only reason he's not actually being held for any of this is the privilege. As someone who's running for president and his status, after he loses this election, he loses that status. Down in Georgia, Fani Willis can actually ask that his bail be revoked, that he actually be taken into custody during the trial. Jack Smith can do the same thing. And there are a lot of people that are thinking that, and I don't know this, I want to get your thoughts on this, that Donald Trump's going to end up like Jeffrey Epstein. If they end up, exactly, Linda Blanton, if they end up remanding him into custody, that old Pooty Poot might want to cut his losses, and Donald Trump may not actually make it through any of these trials. Might get too close to a window. I don't know. I don't know. We're going to see. But yeah, we're going to see. Well, look, I don't want to leave you with such a bad taste in your mouth. Can you believe an hour flew by already? I don't want to leave you with such a bad taste in your mouth. I really don't. I just had a really great day that I spent with Colin Allred. You know, people keep asking me, can Colin Allred win? Can Colin Allred win? Yeah, he can. I got to tell you, I mean, it was a fantastic. This is at a private fundraiser after the public event. Yeah, Colin Allred can win. He can. You know, we were talking about Paul. I'm going to tell you what I really like about this guy and why I think Colin Allred can win. One, he's not a radical. He's not. He is not out there on the fringes of anything. He believes in doing the work of government. None of his views, you know, if you're looking for an environmentalist senator, he's not it. His views are kind of pretty middle of the road. He understands we have environmental groups. And then on the other side, we've got corporations, and those two fringes don't really get anything done. If you want to get something done, you've got to be practical. You have to do things. Let me give you an example. This is Garland, Texas. You're going to see. It's actually, for folks that don't live around here, you know, Irving, Plano, Garland, that's all part of Dallas, Fort Worth. This is Dallas, Fort Worth Metroplex. This is Garland, Texas. It's a huge city. This is where Colin Allred's district is. Right here, and this runs North Dallas and Garland, you know, just slices the western edge of Garland and North Dallas up here around Louisville, all of that. That's his district. That's where he serves now. This is the kind of thing he does. Dallas has a lot of veterans, and they don't have enough room in their VA hospitals. They just don't. So what does Colin Allred do? Well, Baylor Scott and White sold a hospital. They closed down a hospital and they were going to sell it. They didn't sell it. They were going to sell it. This is Baylor Scott and White in Garland. They're like, tapped out. We're out of here. What did he do? He got together with a Republican senator for the region, from the area, and they convinced Baylor Scott and White to donate the hospital to the VA. And then he spent the last several years getting funding, because what good is an empty hospital, right? The first thing they used it for is a backup hospital during COVID. If they needed more beds, they could use it for overflow. But since then, he has spent his time in Congress getting funding so that you can get doctors and services in this hospital to help veterans. That's the kind of thing that Colin Allred does. It's the sausage of running our government, the work. So yeah. Do I think Colin Allred can win? Yeah, I do, because he's no Ted Cruz. He's not spending his time up in New York with makeup billionaires, you know, filleting people for donations. That's not what he's doing. The guy is a workhorse. He is a workhorse, and he's well liked in the area. He's got the votes. I'm telling you, folks. And if you look at the polls, it's a dead heat between him and Ted Cruz right now. And every single day, he keeps creeping up and creeping up and creeping up. In the next few days, you're going to see him pull ahead. We've got to keep our foot on the gas. Yeah, exactly. Part of Colorado's issue is Denton County. Northern Dallas. That's who the guy is, folks. That's a Democrat for you. That's what you're supposed to do when they pay you $174,000 a year plus benefits. You're supposed to do that kind of work to serve your people. And no, Cancun Cruz doesn't give a crap. He doesn't. He's too busy sitting with Harlan Crow and, taking their trips and all that crazy shit that these Republicans do. Ask Vicki Bruton. She'll tell you. This is what the guy does. He's not a show horse. He's a workhorse. That's who we want here in Texas. And the more people that find out about stuff like this and the things that he does and the kind of guy he is, he's not a radical. And I'm going to tell you right now, he's not a radical. He's very practical. He looks at problems and says, okay, how do we fix this problem? Not, how do I impress these people over here so they'll send me money? That's not what he does. It's not how he works. And I love the guy for it. I really do. I really do. I am 100% on the Colin Allred train because that's what we need. We don't need Lauren Boeberts. We don't need Marjorie Trader Greens and all of the freaking nutballs that we've seen, Ted Cruz and all of these people that are just doing insane, crazy stuff. Bring boring back, please. Please bring boring back. Let's just, I don't need to see Anna Luna's ass. I don't want that. There are porn sites if I want to see stuff like that. I don't need that in my government. Anyways, folks, that's what I wanted to leave you with. That's what we're getting. The support you've been showing, the work you've been doing, keep your foot on the gas because, we've all seen the reports coming out of them purging voters off the rolls here in Texas, and they use legitimate, like I've always told you, the best lies the Republicans tell have a slight kernel of truth. Thanks for the support, Monica. I really appreciate you. The best lies the Republicans tell always have a twisted kernel of truth. People die every year. They do. People just die. About 250,000 people in this latest purge are just dead people. Every state in the union does that. When you die, they take you off the voter roll. That's part of this purge. Another part of this purge that's gone on, you're seeing on the news, is felons. People who have been adjudicated felons and have lost their voting rights are being removed from the voter registration rolls. But folks, that's not 1 million people. It's not. They are straight up kicking Democrats off the voter registration rolls. And their evil Popeye is going after groups like LULAC, League of United Latin American Citizens. That is a strong Hispanic organization down here in Texas that works to help people here in the state of Texas. They do. Do you know it's illegal? Say your brother-in-law, fills out his voter registration, but he's got to work, man. He can't get down there. He says, hey, can you drop this off for me? If you take it and go drop it off for him, you've committed a crime in the state of Texas. That's how screwed up Republicans have made it in this state. Yeah. If you provide assistance to someone that the state doesn't deem worthy of assistance, that's a crime. In many cases, a felony here in the state of Texas. They just went after literally an 87-year-old woman, 87, They raided her home. Evil Popeye, Ken Paxton, raided her home. You know why? Because she filed complaints about them kicking people off the voter rolls, because she helps people understand how to become registered. They seized her phone, they seized her computers, they terrified her. They showed her pictures of a woman that made allegations that she was helping people get registered. She's never seen that woman before in her life. She doesn't know who the hell this person was. Why is Evil Popeye doing this? To set the narrative. To set the narrative. Because if you're MAGA in Texas, what you want to hear is they're cheating. Because if you hear that, you'll give Evil Popeye all the leash he wants to cheat his ass off. And you'll claim you're righteous. Because an 87-year-old woman helped people get registered to vote. That's what it's all about, folks. And they screwed up when they went after LULAC. LULAC is no joke. These are fighters. These people are fighters. I have to tell you, the League of United Latin American Citizens here in Texas is the real freaking deal, and they are not going to let this go. LULAC has pulled with the press. They have pulled with Hispanic press. They have lawyers. This was a mistake. I'm really glad to see Evil Popeye made this mistake and went after the wrong people. Because one, this looks horrible. You rated an 87-year-old. Yeah, like there's an 87-year-old woman in Texas that's responsible for voter fraud. My ass. My ass. New Kid, the GOP enthusiasts are trying to change rules in our local election commission here in Lane County, Oregon as well. Yep, folks, they're doing it nationwide. They're doing it. It's not just here in Texas. It's not. It makes a lot of news here in Texas because we're turning Texas blue. We are. We are turning Texas blue. Thank you for the support. I really appreciate you. Thank you for letting me do this full time. But my point with this, all of this is, vote in such large numbers. I don't care if you're in the reddest district in the reddest part of the reddest state, anywhere and everywhere. Get registered now. Check your registration now. And vote. Get as many people as possible that you can to vote. Why? So that we win in such overwhelming numbers that guys like Evil Popeye, who will cheat, Ken Paxton will cheat. He has no morals. He's got no character. Billionaires paid off Republicans to keep from impeaching him. This guy's a lowlife. We have to win, not just by a few points, by a few thousand votes here. We have to win by tens of thousands of votes. So that when this is over, our legion of lawyers can go in and say, audit it. Recount them. Count them again. Count them 5 times. Count them 10 times. We beat your ass. That's what you got to do, folks. Keep your foot on the gas so that we can get guys like Colin Allred that just want to work. That's all the man wants to do. That's all the man wants to do as senator, is he wants to work. Let's do this. Let's do this. Well, that's what I've got for you today, folks. I appreciate all the support. I really do. Thank you. I know, hey, I'm with you, man. I understand. I appreciate every penny. It allows me to do this full time. Your donations are literally allowing me to do this as a full-time job. And I couldn't be more grateful. Talking about history, spending time with you folks, talk about a priceless job. I mean, best job I ever had. And I'm grateful to you. Thank you for doing it. Kay Kennedy, please, please, please check your voter registration, get status. Amen. If you're in a hurry, vote.org. great place to check. But don't just rely on online sources. Check. Go to your registrars. E.T., thank you for the support, my friend. The main takeaway is that another jury of his peers has said that Donald has committed chargeable offenses enough to stand up in a jury trial. Amen, brother. Amen. And he pulled the Supreme Court's teeth. Way to go, Jack. Thank you. Sarcasm is free. That I actually love doing this. I do. I love spending this time with you folks. I do. You folks, it was like we went to that fundraiser. It was just an entire house full. And by the way, Christian and Stephanie, thank you so much for hosting that. That was amazing. You were the best hosts. You really were. I mean, just amazing. But a bunch of like-minded, and I'm talking, there were doctors there, lawyers there. These were professionals. These were the movers and the shakers that were opening up their checkbook to make this happen. And you, by the way, allowed me to make the donation that got me in the door. Hey, I didn't let me in because I was pretty. They let me in because I wrote a check. I'm telling you folks, yeah, just spending the time with you is everything, because there are so many really stupid. Think about the Tim Walz dog video. You got jackasses that are Republicans that are sitting there doing things like taking still photos out of a video that they know what they're doing. I mean, they watched the video, obviously, to get the still photos. They watched the video. They knew exactly what it was. It was Tim Walz at a dog park loving on dogs. I mean, what could be greater, right? So how can we try to make that look bad or stupid? We'll take a still shot and put it with the caption and pretend it's something it's not. That's what they're doing. That's what they're doing. That's all they got. E.T., my guy, says it is less than 10 weeks until the general election. Make sure of your voter registration deadlines. Florida is October 7th. In Texas, it's 30 days out, folks. We do not have 70 plus days. You've got 40 days. You've got, listen to what ET says here. There are deadlines to being registered, and it is not election day in most states. Some places have same day registration. Most states do not. Listen to what ET says here, man. He tells you every show, and thank you, ET. Thumbs up. This is what I mean by spending time with you people, having somebody that is willing to remind you every show. ET's not affiliated with the show. He's just a great freaking guy that cares. Patricia, I didn't pull that one up. I didn't get to read that one yet. Thank you. Thank you, Texas Paul. I want to do something this election cycle by using my story. If anyone can land me a platform to reach the American people. We'll see, Patricia. We'll see. We'll see. Slava Ukraini. Great message. Great message. But yeah, that's what I've got for you today, folks. And I just wanted to, give you some background and some understanding of the importance of Ayn Rand and the fact that jerk, Donald Trump, would disrespect those soldiers, call them suckers and losers. Folks, if it wasn't for the soldiers at Bellwood, there's a good chance the Kaiser wins in World War I. Not because Bellwood itself was so militarily critical. No, because it kept the French in the fight. It kept the British in the fight. It established the culture of our modern military that we still, to this day, embrace as a country. Ask a Marine about the significance of Bellwood. Ask them about that hollowed ground at Ayn Rand. They'll tell you. They will. Love you, folks. This is Old Texas Paul out. I appreciate you. Enjoy some Texas cities at night.